Hey everybody, I'm Tim from Master Vintner. Today I'm working with a couple of products I thought I'd talk to you about. The first is this Master Vintner Limited Edition 2016 La Philosophie Chardonnay. It is a fabulous Chardonnay. The aromatics on it, the juice just going into the fermenter, are spectacular. Really peachy, white fruits, apples. It's got a lot of aromatics pre-fermentation that are really rocking my world. Now this one doesn't come with any oaking. And that's in keeping with a style that's very clean and minimalist. But I have plans for it. I'm, after all, the guy who has to play with these things to see what they do. So on this particular one, I am going to add some oak. In order to do that, I am going to use this. This is the Big Mouth Bubbler Depth Charge. And what the depth charge is a stainless steel mesh screen, very fine mesh, and it attaches to the top of the Big Mouth Bubbler here, and it's got a gasket. And what you do is you put whatever you want soaking in your wine or beer. They work for beer. So with beer, you'd probably be using hops or fruits or peels or things like that. But I'm going to put some oak in here, drop it into the fermenter, and then use the plunger periodically to make sure that the oak has a chance to come in contact with the wine. The plunger will principally hold it under a bit, and then I'll stir it until it gets waterlogged. Now this has a seal here. It locks in so it stays very sturdy, doesn't fall into the wine. If you look here, you can see that this gasket is flexible. It also comes out for easy cleaning. That will allow the rod to move up and down to stir the oak chips around, and it'll also allow the exit of fermentation gases and prevent anything from falling into the carboy. So what I've done now is I've pre-sanitized this unit, and I've pre-measured 2 ounces of medium toast American oak chips. I'm just going to put those right in. Attach my rod here. It's just got a little sealing mechanism. You seat it, turn it, and voila. And then into my pre-pitched juice it goes. And as I said before, it's all pre-sanitized and ready to go. So now I can immediately smell the oak getting integrated into the air as it flows around there. It's really kind of nice. So that's the gasket there. We'll make sure that's fully seated and nicely set. And then we can use that to move the oak around inside the infuser. It's as simple as that. It's ready to go. In 5 to 7 days, I'm going to check the wine to see what the oak character is like. When you use smaller chips, the oak character is released more quickly because there's a lot more surface area on a tiny chip. If you use the oak powder, the oakmore powder, the sawdust-like stuff, that releases all of its flavor within about 2 days during an active fermentation. So in about 5-7 days, I'm going to double check, see where the oak is at. If it's a little past what I want, that's okay. It'll die back just a bit as the wine ages out. The oak does calm down. But I don't want to make an oak bomb. I just want to add a kiss of oak on top of this. Now I'm not going to have to worry about racking the wine right away, because I'll be able to just take the whole depth charge out, remove the oak product, and wash it off and replace this with a standard Big Mouth Bubbler top. All right, I'm back again, but I have a confession to make. It isn't 7 days later, it's 12 days later. What happened was I kept sampling the wine, checking the gravity, which descended as per I would expect, but I was enjoying the development of the aromatics so much that I decided to leave it until it reached terminal gravity. You see, what happens when you ferment with oak is that there's a biotransformation. The yeast actually attacks the vanillins and flavonoids and things like that in the oak, and what they do is they change it, mellow it, stretch it out. It gets some depth, and that's why they do barrel fermentations, to get that particular character. Works just as well with an oak product like chips or cubes. So I was enjoying the development, left it until today. It has a fantastic aroma, really depthful, a little bit savory, but it's still got all that tropical fruit, white fruits, green apple. There's a distinct peachiness that's being supported now that's really, really pleasant. I'm very excited. So theoretically, today is the day when I would be racking this wine to a secondary fermenter and letting it rest and finish and degas before further processing. And then I'd clean this out and clean out the depth charge and things like that. But what I'm going to do is something quite tricky. I am going to take this Master Vintner Limited Edition 2016 Joli Sauvignon Blanc au France, beautiful French Sauvignon Blanc, and I am going to rack this out of here and put this wine right in on top. Now, that's not usual for home winemakers. You don't usually just hot swap a primary fermenter. It's something that home beer brewers do all the time. It's pretty much acknowledged that if you want a fast, thorough, clean fermentation with a huge yeast cake, you can just put a fresh batch of beer on top of the yeast from a batch you're just racking out of a primary fermentation. Works quite well if you've got a nice healthy yeast culture. You can do the same thing with wine. Now, the object in this case isn't going to be getting a fast, clean, thorough fermentation. We will, but that's not the reason why I want to do it. The reason why I want to do it is I want to get all the character out of the yeast from this Chardonnay that's gone through the biotransformation of the oak. I'm going to mix in the Sauvignon Blanc on top of it, let it ferment, and then I'm going to rack it, yeast cake, sediments, and everything into a carboy and leave it for a year without racking it. Now, what's going to happen is that yeast is going to sediment out, deposit. Over time, it'll go dormant, and after that, it'll do what everything does. It's going to die. And that's what I want. The yeast cell will rupture, and it'll release the contents of the cell into the wine. And those contents include things like amino acids and manoproteins. And amino acids are going to give it a savory, bready, cracker-like character. Now, where you find this is in Surlier aged Sauvignon Blancs and some barrel fermented Chardonnays, but commonly in French Champagne, which is aged for long periods of time on its own yeast sediment. When someone says a Champagne is biscuity or bready, they're referring to the decay of yeast and the return of the yeast contents into the wine, which is technically called autolysis or autolysis, depending on how you pronounce it. So I want this. I want this to happen. And aging the wine on the lees is called Surlier. And in order to facilitate the transfer of that flavor of the decaying yeast into the wine, I'm actually going to engage in something called batonnage. Batonnage is where you simply stir the wine. So you take that yeast cake full of dying and decaying yeast cells and stir it up into suspension every once in a while, depending on the schedule. You can do it, once a week for a month or twice a week or something like that. I'm going to probably do it for about 6 months, once or twice a week whenever I think about it. And that's going to form the basis of a Surlier aged Sauvignon Blanc that has been through batonnage. And I expect to have a very rich wine full of mouthfeel, creamy, crackery, biscuity notes, in addition to the sharp, crisp, lovely Sauvignon Blanc character. So it's time to rack this wine right now. And that's the beauty of a big mouth bubbler. Look at this. Oh, it's racking time. I have to get a racking cane. I have to get a... Oh, nah. Let's turn that on. But those are the 2 ounces of toasted American oak chips that I put in the very beginning of this video. I'm not going to include them in the Sauvignon Blanc fermentation because I just want what the Chardonnay yeast has to offer this particular wine. I also don't want a distinct oaked character in it. I think that if I wanted that, like a Fumé Blanc character, I could add some oak after fermentation and processing is done. But off we go, and I'll make this up and get back to you in a minute. Despite the fact that I put in 2 ounces of medium toasted American oak chips, this is not too oaky. The biotransformation has corralled the more aggressive, more assertive aspects of the oak, and this smells absolutely beautiful. I can tell right now that this is going to be a real great wine. Probably in about a year or so, get some age on it, give it a try and see how it is. Now, the Joli Sauvignon Blanc has a very classic French Sauvignon Blanc character. Unlike, say, a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, which has a very catty gooseberry smell, hint of asparagus, or perhaps a California Sauvignon Blanc, which is super tropical fruit character. This is classic, fresh cut hay, a little bit of that vegetal character, but bright citrus notes. It's a very clean, very lovely smelling wine. Right on top of the lees from the Chardonnay. I expect that it's going to start fermenting within a few hours. and it's going to take on all those characters of that Surlier aging. So we'll check back on these in a few months. Thanks for watching, and remember, with Master Vintner, you can uncork and make something special.